I have been putting a spotlight on how bullish Stellar actually has been over the last couple weeks, and technically XLM has been pretty bullish since going all the way back to about roughly November of 2024. Even with the recent drop in the market and even with everything that has happened over the last, year for crypto, I still think that some of these projects like Stellar are just continuing to make some extremely large waves, and the price action that we see on projects like XLM, for an example, I think XLM right now is sitting around like the 40 cent region. Some of this price action today, we're going to come back to it in just a couple weeks or even in a couple months and say, wow, well, we should have been paying attention to some of the updates that Stellar was pushing during that time and maybe invested some money into XLM because now it's, 2 times the price or 3 times the price. Even right now, when we think about what's happening around some of these networks, Stellar just recorded its new 30-day high, which is 13.4 almost million transactions in a single day. We have here from ChainSpect, Stellar is turning up the pace. On August 8th, Stellar Org processed 13.4 million plus transactions, a 13% jump from its previous peak. A borderless decentralized network empowering builders to move value globally and expand access to the financial system at scale. And this is another important thing to focus on, right? Although, yes, Stellar is, increasing in value in terms of the actual XLM token, the network itself is starting to see increased adoption. This is because of all of the work that the Stellar team has been putting in over the last couple months. We've been seeing update after update after update, partnership after partnership after partnership, which we'll go over as well in this video. But it's crazy to me to look at the actual network stats, which, by the way, you can look at the stats from the, I think it's the Dev Explorer on Stellar's website. It actually gives you a little bit of a better breakdown, but I'm just using ChainSpect here to really kind of look at this. And we could see the max TPS 182.3. We could see the real-time TPS as well. And then you could actually look into the transactions as well if you really wanted to. But the fact that we're witnessing this much growth for XLM over this time is telling us that the network itself is starting to heat up in a big way. What has changed? Well, we already know that institutional players are tapped in with Stellar. But outside of institutional players tapped in with Stellar for tokenization use cases, we continue to see stablecoin use cases on Stellar heating up. But also the DeFi market. This is a very big thing to watch because I have been keeping a close eye on this since the new year. Because we know that with Sorobon launching back in, 2022, we knew that DeFi was going to become a big thing on Stellar. Well, today, the DeFi market this year, on January 1st, it was at 45 million. It's at $155 million almost. Guys, look at how insane this chart is for DeFi on Stellar. The stablecoin market cap on Stellar is over $660 million. This is extremely bullish. And we could see where the dominance is. Most of the dominance is actually coming from Benji. This is with Franklin Templeton. It's about 67%. This is extremely exciting to watch. And by the way, you could see the DEX volume here as well. The DEX has been exploding. Just taking a quick look. Let's look at the monthly real quick. So we could see, and I wish that this was a little bit more accurate. I don't know if you guys can see, but it's actually glitching out on me. But the DEX volume is over $120 million compared to the November high of $59 million. This is, or the all-time high of $95 million. So the TVL was $59 million at this time, or almost $59 million. The DEX volume was about $95, almost $96 million compared to this $120 million spike here. And I don't know if it's just glitching out or if that's just DeFi Llama, but again, regardless of that, we could still see how the growth here is starting to pick up around the DEX side. Outside of the DEX volume, we could also see the stablecoin market cap here. And taking a quick look at the stablecoin market cap for XLM, we can see that this has quickly been growing in a big way. And this is all thanks to, of course, Franklin Templeton. But also the DEX volume here over the last 24 hours, we could see the DEX volume has been pretty steady around like $3 million or so, at least almost every single day. It's about roughly 3 million. And a lot of this is thanks to some of these protocols on Stellar. First off, we have the Stellar DEX, which we could open up in a new tab. By the way, this is Franklin Templeton here. If we actually look at Franklin Templeton, total value locked, $695 million. Most of that is on, Stellar. In terms of like TVL, we could see a full breakdown of the TVL here. But the Stellar DEX has about $32 million tied to it. And just going down the list here, there's a lot of DEXs. Most of this is DEXs, RWAs as well. I would love to see a little bit more protocols going live on Stellar, but one that recently did go live is Blend. This actually went live back in 2024, and it has been quickly growing. We're at about like $34 million here, which we love to see. And even more recently, we did hear actually from Tom regarding Blend Capital. We have here, if I have to choose one project, there's one project called Blend Capital in our ecosystem. It is a DeFi protocol that's basically like a building block for various type of liquidity protocols. A lot of the Stellar Org native applications present to users as just kind of like neo-banking app rather than a crypto native experience. We have a bunch of assets right now. FTI, aka Franklin Templeton, for example. Ondo Finance is onboarding. We have Etherfuse, which is really cool. Project that does tokenize bonds from across the world as well. But check this out.
Yeah, so if I'd have to choose one project, there's one project called Blend in our ecosystem, which is a DeFi protocol that's basically like a building block for various type of liquidity protocols, mostly lending and borrowing. And so anyone can actually deploy their own pool on top of Blend. And not only that, but if you are a wallet operator, for example, you could offer this as a service to your customers by creating like a Blend vault in which you actually take a cut of the profits. And so what we're seeing is that a lot of the Stellar native applications, which present to a lot of the users as just kind of like a neo-banking application rather than a crypto native experience, what we're seeing is that these applications are using stablecoins as kind of like this building block of a checking account equivalent in these applications. On top of that, they could offer things like real world assets. So, we have a bunch of assets right now. Franklin Templeton, for example, Ondo is onboarding. We have Etherfuse, for example, which is a really cool project that does tokenized bonds from across the world. And so we have this layer of like RWAs that you can think of as like a high yield savings account. And then on top of that, you can offer additional yield opportunities that come from DeFi. And so wallets are offering these to the users. Users are immediately jumping in, and you see the retention numbers are pretty insane. So if you're already using these applications, whether it's for remittances or if you're using them as just a US dollar savings account in order to hedge against inflation wherever you're from. And so we're seeing these users are really keen to jump into more assets, to more protocols. And while the numbers are still small, the retention is really nice. So we're seeing users that use these wallets and they come back every month when they get their paycheck or when they get a remittance and they top it off. And so we're seeing a lot of stickiness at this like intersection of like DeFi and TradFi.
And yeah, I mean, we could clearly see that, right, with the DeFi growth here. I mean, it's extremely significant. And it's all a part of the big push, even with the TradFi convergence with DeFi, which he did mention, right? That's why we're starting to see a lot of these big players like Franklin Templeton growing on these public networks. We're seeing the big push from the institutional side. And networks like Stellar are the perfect, place for them to tap into tokenization use cases or even just DeFi use cases as well. Stellar is starting to witness that. One of the craziest things is, like I said, the partnerships this year. We have watched as more and more partnerships have been announced around Stellar with some extremely large names. For example, we go back to October 15th of just last year. MasterCard joined the Stellar network. This is with MasterCard crypto credential ecosystem to unlock verified interactions across public blockchain networks. This was a huge one. It got announced at Meridian, which is why I'm actually excited for Meridian this year. I think that's going to be a big one. But the Stellar Development Foundation announced a new partnership with MasterCard to integrate the company's crypto credential solution with the Stellar network. Again, this was back in October. just recently, actually, it was a little bit more recent in June. We saw PayPal USD announce plans to use Stellar for new use cases. Again, another massive name. This is MasterCard and then PayPal, two well-known household names in the financial space and even outside of the financial space. And then also this one, this is with Airtime and Bridge. They're scaling stablecoin payouts with Stellar. A lot of people actually don't know, but Bridge just recently got acquired by Stripe. And if we're thinking about this, Stripe was one of the first investors into Stellar. And this is kind of a major connection with Stellar. It kind of shows us how Stripe is tapped in with Stellar. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in time there was a much larger announcement with Stripe and Stellar, like, you know, what we're seeing over here with PayPal or even MasterCard or, you know, you name it, right? There's been multiple announcements very similar to this over the last couple, weeks. And one of the most recent ones is actually Visa. So here we actually have, it just keeps getting better. Welcome to the club at Visa. So breaking, Visa adds support for PYUSD, which is PayPal's USD, USDG, and your stablecoins. Stellar and Avalanche join Ethereum and Solana for on-chain settlement. So again, when we're thinking about all of these announcements, they're happening in such a short amount of time. In fact, it's been in the last 12 months. But also, we just heard from Visa's CEO talking about payments on CNBC, and Stellar did quote it, saying the three necessities for payments, according to Visa's CEO: trust, ease of use, and scale. Stellar is built on trust and is designed to make payments work better, with Visa bringing stablecoin settlement support to the Stellar network. Scale is up next. Check this out.
Jim, payments, you need three things. You need trust, you need ease of use, and you need scale. And the reason why we have close to 5 billion Visa credentials around the world, the reason why we have 14 billion Visa tokens around the world, and the reason why 150 million merchants around the world depend on Visa to grow their businesses is because nobody does that better than Visa. And if stablecoins become a mode of currency that people want to embrace around the world, we will enable that on the Visa system and scale that to those billions of endpoints. That's what you need to do well in payments. That's what Visa does better than anybody in the world.
And what's crazy about this is if we're thinking about stablecoin adoption and, you know, just how big stablecoins are becoming, we have a network that we can look back on. You know, Stellar has 7 stablecoins tied to it. And I'm not saying that it's just Stellar, right? We talk about XRP on this channel. We talk about Hedera. All of these networks can easily be tapped in. But what's crazy about all of this is how much adoption is happening for Stellar at a time where a lot of people just simply aren't paying attention because there's other flashy altcoins out there. But this is very beneficial for us because we're seeing all of the facts here. The facts are this: the network itself is starting to process millions and millions of transactions. It's hitting major peaks at the same exact time that the DeFi side of Stellar is heating up in a big way. And, you know, it's crazy because also on top of the DeFi market picking up a ton of pace, the stablecoin side of the market for Stellar is also quickly gaining a lot of pace as well. Almost $1 billion in stablecoin market cap, which is wild. I mean, guys, these use cases and these announcements are all going hand in hand with one another to actually support the network growth, support the ecosystem as well. And this is why XLM will also do extremely well because we're seeing growth metrics across the board. We're just waiting for XLM to hit major highs and challenge the all-time highs, which I do believe that we will be trading at $1 plus this cycle. I don't think that that's unheard of. In the Stellar ecosystem. I'm sure that there's been a lot of content creators that are telling you like, hey, $1 is, you know, most likely going to happen. I see us hitting much higher than $1. But that's just like the first stop for me. I think that's basically going to be the first major area to hit on the chart. But after that, you know, I do think that we are going to go much higher because it just makes a lot of sense going off of everything that we're seeing with Stellar, the growth across the board, the announcements, the partnerships, and with Meridian 2025 coming up, I do think that we're going to see even more announcements and even more partnerships hitting the Stellar ecosystem, which I'm very excited to watch and listen in for. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, like, subscribe to notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.